this breaking news out of Minneapolis, where a shooting has taken place. You're looking live at the scene as these pictures begin to roll in. Here are the details. Bill Malusian learned just after 10:15 a.m. about a Border Patrol shooting, multiple law enforcement sources confirming this to him. It took place at 26th Street East and Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. Border Patrol shot someone. CPR was being performed. The individual was on the scene with medics around him, was loaded into an ambulance and taken away. Unclear on his condition this morning. We learned that that individual was armed. There were 2 magazines. We've obtained a picture of the weapon that DHS tells us was on the individual who was shot. Governor Walz, since then, has come out and said he spoke with the White House. He said, in his words, after another horrific shooting by federal agents this morning. Minnesota has had it. He said, "This is sickening. The president must end this operation, pull the thousands of violent, untrained officers out of Minnesota now," Governor Walz said. With that, let's bring in Nicole Parker. Nicole, as we learn these details, we see the weapon. We're in the very preliminary stages, only sharing the details we know. What is your analysis with the limited information we have here at 11:50?
That's a key point right there, Kaylee. This is a limited analysis because there's not a lot of information out at this point. But again, it's very important to note that it is from the perspective of the agent at the time that the shooting occurred. It is not Monday morning quarterbacking. Hindsight is 2020. It is, did those agents believe that they were in, serious danger of death or serious physical injury, and did they believe that that deadly force was justified? And we need to look very closely at the fact that they likely saw the firearm. That's a big red flag when you're a law enforcement officer and you're, the videos that I've seen, very limited, but it appears that they were in close contact with them. If you believe that a subject is grabbing for that weapon and that they could pull it out at any moment and use it and fire it against you, that is going into your checklist of things. Is deadly force justified? And again, these agents are expected to make split-second decisions. It is between, life or death, action versus reaction. But we will let the full investigation work itself out. I know that there was a question that I believe was asked earlier on, and they asked, was the magazine in the gun? Let's say that the magazine was not in the gun, okay? Just a scenario that might be the case. Frankly, that's irrelevant because the agent, if they do not know whether or not it is loaded or not, when you are seeing a gun in your face and you're in the scuffle, then you have to, again, assume that is a gun. An appearance of a gun, things of that sort, again, agents are going through their minds check by check. And when Tim Walz is coming out and saying, based on the quote that you shared, these are violent, untrained officers, with all due respect, having been a federal agent, we are highly trained officers. We go through extensive training. We go through these types of scenarios over and over and over to the point where you literally have to justify whether or not deadly force would be used in front of a legal panel. So for him to say that they are untrained, I think is highly inaccurate. And again, this is the rhetoric that is causing this problem in the first place.
And Nicole, I asked our team to put on the sound. You can now hear the sound from that video on the streets there. It seems to be peaceful at the moment, but I wanted to play this sound here as we're watching this video, because what Governor Walz said, look, he said he spoke with the White House. We do not have a comment from the White House just yet. We do have details coming in from DHS. But it seems to me, to your point, to talk about violent, untrained officers, to immediately characterize the shooting before the facts come out, it's a peaceful scene right here. But there's no doubt these individuals are hearing what the governor says, hearing what the White House says, and it would be wise to calm tensions rather than elevate them. And it seems the White House outreach was an attempt to do that with Governor Walz, to talk about the facts on the ground.
Correct. And so this is where the problem lies, is that you have these individuals. Why do you think that the Department of Justice is looking into these individuals for potential obstruction? Because they are off making these sorts of comments. They are riling up their constituents. Let the facts speak for themselves. But again, I take high offense to anyone that says that these federal agents are not trained. It is anything but the truth. We are very highly trained, regardless of what agency you're a member of, whether it's FBI, DEA, CBP, very highly trained, probably the best in the country.
Yeah, and Nicole, we're waiting to see if that weapon was loaded. Just one more question for you here. You point out just if the magazines were there and the gun was visible, what is an officer thinking? Because these officers have been rammed with cars. We saw that with ICE. This is Border Patrol. We await to hear what this interaction was, but there was a weapon, it seems to be involved.
Correct. I mean, it appears based on the coverage that you have that there was a weapon recovered at the scene. you see a weapon, you see a gun, automatically you're going again. I keep saying it, but it literally is like a checklist in your mind, and you're expected to make these split-second decisions. When there's a firearm potentially the subject is grabbing for the firearm, has the firearm visible to the agent, and again, it's the agent's perspective. Did they believe that their life was in, some serious injury or physical death, imminent injury or death at the time that they made that decision? But let's look and see. Let's see what the investigation says. I would be curious to know if these CBP officers had body cams on. That's always extremely telling and very helpful for investigations. But what I've learned in these cases, and again, going back to George Floyd days, it always is different than what the media initially is able to show. And there's always multiple angles to it. And that's why it's always very important to withhold judgment until there is a full picture of what actually transpired. And so again, no one wants to use their firearm, Kaylee. When you're an officer, a law enforcement officer of any agency, local, state, federal, the last thing you want to do is have to pull your weapon, because regardless of whether or not the deadly force is justified, the use of lethal force is justified, you know that you are going to go through the highest level of scrutiny. They are going to come after you, your family. I mean, we saw what happened after George Floyd. There were clean shoots happening, and police officers were going to jail for clean shoots. So I can tell you from the perspective of law enforcement, this is a last resort effort if you are using deadly force. And so let's keep everything in mind and leave it up to the professionals to conduct the investigation. And again, keep the constituents as calm as possible. No one wants to have to use their firearm, but if they do, trust me, the first thing they're going to be doing is going to the agent and doing a full investigation and saying, why did you think that deadly force was justified? And you have to legally articulate exactly why you did what you did.
Yes, no doubt about it. Nicole Parker, thank you for your analysis based on the limited set of facts that we have. You're looking live on the ground at Minneapolis, and you can hear, audible kind of chants of protest, peaceful scene right there at the moment. And just to reorient our viewers with the facts we have at the moment, we do not know if that weapon was visible to the Border Patrol agent. We don't know if it was drawn. All we know at the moment is that there was a weapon on the individual who was shot by Border Patrol. There were 2 magazines there as well. You're looking at an image of that. And as we pull back up that live image of Minneapolis, let's also bring in Mark Thiessen. Mark Thiessen, you're back with us. I wanted to get back with you because you mentioned Tim Walz's statement, and I just read it in full. I'm sure you heard it there. He said that he spoke with the White House this morning, and he said it's a horrific shooting by federal agents this morning. Minnesota, have had it. This is sickening. The president must end this operation, pull the thousands of violent, untrained officers out of Minnesota. So he has a very clear viewpoint early on in this. I also want to remind our viewers what President Trump said from the White House this week, the White House podium. He said, Renee Good was shot. That was the shooting a few weeks ago. I felt terribly about that. I understand both sides of it. That is a comment from the White House earlier in the week. We have no fresh comment from the White House now. But it strikes me that kind of sentiment is the sentiment we need now as we await a White House response.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Walz is, there but for the grace of God goes our vice president. I mean, what to come out and make such a highly charged statement when we don't know so many of the facts is simply outrageous. And the one fact we do know is that the Border Patrol shot someone who was armed. So that's a problem. If that person was an illegal migrant that they were targeting, there's no circumstance under which someone who's in our country illegally should have a gun. So that's a problem. If it was a protester, then that it could be because they responded. They've been pouring gasoline on the fire and encouraging these protesters to go and challenge ICE. Everything that the state of Minnesota is doing is putting people in danger, in greater danger. Because if the ICE has to go out into the community and find these people as opposed to taking them when they're being released from prisons in cooperation with local enforcement, then, thank God only the person with the gun was shot. Bystanders could have been shot. He could have pulled his weapon and started shooting back, and there could have been a shootout. There's so many possibilities of how this could have gone much worse than it did. And so they're forcing, with the sanctuary policies, they're forcing ICE to go out and into the communities to find these criminal aliens, and they're encouraging people to interfere with them. They're not just not cooperating, which is what they should be doing. They are encouraging people to get in their way. And so this is a recipe for danger. They are putting protesters' lives at risk. They are putting the illegal migrants who they claim they want to protect. They're putting their lives at risk. They're putting bystanders at risk by everything they're doing. So if anything is dangerous and unlawful, it's what Tim Walz is doing. And there ought to be consequences for how the state of Minnesota and the city of Minneapolis is handling this.
Mark, I want to bring back Nicole Parker here for a moment. Nicole, we just have a few moments here, but it seems to be some smoke is rising. I don't know if these are smoke bombs. It was peaceful when we began to talk, and we noted that rhetoric really matters now, and calming tensions really matters. What are we seeing on our screens now? What's your analysis of this?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to keep things calm and, diffuse the tension. Again, Kaylee, this is not what agents ever want to have happen. It's insulting to hear this governor make it seem like, this is the wild, wild west and this is what they want to be doing. This is not what they want to be doing. They are literally enforcing the laws. These are targeted interactions. These are targeted operations. They are simply doing their job. And again, without the details of who the subject is, whether they were someone that they were arresting, whether they were a bystander or protester, frankly, when you're looking at the deadly force policies, that's completely irrelevant. For them, they are literally looking at what we've gone over and over before. But my piece of advice to anyone in Minneapolis and frankly anywhere in the country, let the law enforcement do their job. If you don't want to run into problems, stay out of the vicinity of law enforcement. Allow them to perform and execute their legal warrants. And if you want to protest, you have that right. Stay out of the way. If you are a subject of an arrest warrant, whether you think it's justified or not, or whether or not you are okay with this, it doesn't matter. You cooperate with law enforcement and you let the legal system work its way through. So again, there is no reason for anyone to be having these types of issues. And we would approach subjects all the time, Kaylee. I work violent crime. Very few times did we have people resist because they knew when the FBI shows up or a federal agent, they respected law enforcement, and those days seem to be over. Nicole, and it's wrong.
Indeed it is, and we appreciate your analysis as we've monitored all this breaking news, people running across the screen, clearly escalating a little bit there. A 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time media briefing by Mayor Fry, Chief O'Hara, to respond to the shooting. We'll monitor that. That, of course, on your screen is the weapon that the individual had who was shot. In the meantime, our prayers go out to Minneapolis for calm, for peace. We pray for our Border Patrol, for our ICE, for the residents of Minneapolis this hour. Aisha Hasni takes it from here.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.